Today I will talk about the Warlord of Warlords, the Chosen of Gork and Mork, the Prophet of the Waaagh, the Beast of Armageddon, the War Boss of Urk, the Goth that united the clans under his banner, Ghazghkull, Waaagh, Uruk, Thraka. Or, to be accurate, I will try to summarize the story of Nate Crowley's book, The Prophet of the Waaagh. While Nate Crowley isn't my favorite author when it comes to orcs, that honor would go to Mike Brooks for the awesome work he did with the Off-Tech trilogy, namely Brutal Conan, War Boss, and The Big Daka, which is the best of the bunch, let's be real. There's no denying the fact that Crowley found an amazing way for us to present the backstory of the orc leader with a sort of thrice-removed, unreliable narrator. But let's not rush things. First, I want to clarify this is not a slight at Nate's work. I would just feel strange making an orc video and not mentioning Brooks in it. But the same sentiment would go for an Necron video in Nate's case. I love the Twice Dead King duology, book and sequel. Before getting into the story, I have to praise the VA work on Audible. As someone who has dyslexia, a small pea-brain, and no attention span at all, I really appreciate the quality of audiobooks that come out nowadays. Kelly Houghton, Paul Putner, and John Rand each do a great job giving their characters personality with their voices. But I'm guessing you aren't here to listen to my opinion on Crowley's other works, or the cast, and I know for a fact you aren't here because of my blood bank video. So let's get into a short, spoiler-free overview. So if people are just kinda interested in what the book is about, they can just click off, read it before we get into spoilers. Our main characters will be Titanida, a Bessinor Fox, a radical Ordo Xenos Lord Inquisitor. Then there's Orm Hendrickson, a Space Wolf Rune Priest who is ex-Death Watch and part of Fox's retinue. And Cassia, a Psyker Ogryn. On the greenskin side of the story, we will get Biter, or bites the face of the face biter before it can bite, a Blood Axe Orc, who is happy to engage in diplomacy, Mad Dog Grotsnik, the crazy pain boy who created Ghazghkull, and Makari, the Grot who became Ghazghkull's banner waver, and also there's the big green fight machine himself, Ghazghkull, Waaagh, Uruk, Thraka. There are basically two parts to the plot. One being about the past, where we listen to a captured and interrogated Makari spit Ghazghkull lore at the Inquisitor and her retinue, and the other being about the interrogation itself, where they grow ever impatient at the not-so-subtle glorification of the tale. Biter is brought in to translate the Grot's mad ramblings as he educates us on the intricacies of orc culture. This is the biggest reason why I'm happy to recommend this book. The unreliable narrator element helps to keep the orc's unique quirkiness, because we don't know what's real or what's not. And with the greenskins, basically anything could be. We get to see a serious orc trying to explain the society and culture to folks, and through her to the reader. This book is great for those who want a summary on Ghazghkull's background, because unlike some Primarch books, this book is actually about what it says on the cover. So, let's get into it. From now on, it's spoilers. 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 guns, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 bullets, 10, 10, 10 big guns and big bullets to go with them, a map with 10 planets without expecting a raid, and another 10 and 5, and another 10, 10, 10, 10, 10 guns. That's what Titanida Fox sold to the Greenskins, just to get her hands on Makari, the War Boss's personal banner waver. The retinue has the Grot in a cell. We get a little hint at Fox's personality and hobbies by seeing some of her menagerie of various captured beasts and Xenos, many imprisoned decades ago. The Gretchen sits there, motionless, watching its captor approach, pulling a Silence of the Lambs on Fox. Fox recognizes the thing is dangerous, sneaky, and subversively strong, and also happy to exploit any chance to kill her. Hendrickson enters the chat with disgust, making a remark about at least hosing the vile prisoner down before he throws up. He seems fairly nonchalant, seeing the interrogation as just another task to be done. Even though he might be slightly annoyed by this task, he was definitely not the kind of man to half-ass anything. The Grot tries to catch Hendrickson lacking, but receives a heavy backhand bitch slap that sends him flying away in his chair. Makari's aggression is quite unique within his kind. Most Gretchens are cowardly, only bullying their weaker kin, but the Space Wolf is determined to make this one squirm. That's when Cassia enters, the Ogryn Psyker from Fox's group. We get some not-so-subtle hints at there being a bit of rivalry between Cassia and Hendrickson, but it's made obvious they also have a decent amount of respect for each other. Cassia starts to probe his mind through her psychic powers. Then we get some lore, some banter, but most importantly, Biter shows up. Biter is the Blood Axe diplomat here to help with the interrogation. Quick note, the Blood Axes are basically sneaky orcs, Not sneaky by our standards, but definitely sneaky by orcish ones. For example, instead of yelling and rushing at you directly, a blood axe might try and avoid your sightlines, get closer, flank you, and then clubber you into a bloody pulp. They also LARP as human-like military, enjoy making up strategies, and like Biter, they occasionally deal with other races. Biter wears a military coat made of scrap leather, a peaked cap, and various medals of flattened scrap metal. Fox is suspicious, but not speaking the Orcs language, she needs Biter there for the interrogation. Fox finally asks about Ghazghkull, and Macario agrees with a smile, with one caveat.
To understand Ghazghkull, you must first understand what it is like to be a grot in Orc society.
They talk about Gretchins being oppressed, squishy, afraid, a kind of slave caste of the greenskin hierarchy. But the Gretchin clarifies that while he hates the orcs, he does believe that this is just the way things were meant to be. The X-work of the gods, he says. They have this very objective way to perceive things. They are very matter-of-fact, just how it has always been in the eaten now, and how it shall be in the new forever. We also find out that Gretchins feel a great aesthetic sense of accomplishment at seeing orcs triumph. This is where the book first switches from the POV of the interrogation, and we finally focus on the origin story itself. Gaz was not his name yet. He was just a small orc boy on a snowy planet named Urk. Right after pressing the new game button, this orc yoinks the hide off of a tundra squig, fashions himself a snazzy coat, and heads to an orc stronghold named Gogduf. The chief of Gogduf takes a liking to the newcomer's quick coat, so he goes down to personally get it from him. But our soon-to-be boss isn't having any of that, so he headbutts the chief immediately, in lieu of any chit-chat. Of course, the chief laughs it off, bonks the newcomer, and walks away with his prize. But the others see the pure fucking balls on the newcomer, and they decided to call the paid boy Krotsnik to try and save him. Gaz here then learns, grows, and becomes part of the Goth clan. One night, a young Gaz talks the old chief into telling him about the galaxy and what fights and loot await them on other planets. The old chief budges, getting all sentimental, and Gaz is amazed by the possibilities. If only they found a way to leave Urk. They ultimately decide to go raid the human stronghold.
Listen up. The gods have given me a great idea. See that beaky fort? I've had enough of it. Soon as the sun comes up, we're gonna do it in. Full assault! Heavy's at the front and everyone else at the front! But first, we're gonna drink this dry. So get stuck in. Blues free if anyone's not got a headache by tomorrow. I'm gonna be giving him one.
Unfortunately, the post turns out to be machine defended, which the orcs are quite disappointed by. A fight's a fight, but they find little satisfaction in hacking up metal. So yeah. Oh yeah, and the newcomer gets a hatchet so big that half his brain goes missing. With his last bit of strength, Gaz holds his brain inside his head, and he heads off to Krotsnik for help. In the next little bit of the interrogation, we get an explanation for a few things. Henriksen voices his concern of all this just being a legend, as Makari was not even mentioned yet. Biter insists this is all true, and that Makari saw it all, even though he wasn't alive yet.
It will be explained if you will be patient.
We also find out that there are multiple versions to Ghazghkull's origin story. That again makes the interrogators assume the greenskins are lying, but Biter lets them know that the orcs can hold multiple contradicting beliefs objectively true. We also get a cute little back and forth about the gender of Ghazghkull, because Biter uses the pronoun they, as orcs are sexless, but Biter proudly exclaims that they understand sex and gender, as in Biter does. I'm using the pronouns interchangeably because I'm lazy to keep things consistent, not as some political statement. I think it's just a fun little tidbit they added. Side tangent over. Going back. Zorko going back. The continuation of the origin story starts with Krotsnik patching up Gaz with a nice big metal where his head was missing. The experiment works at first, but Krotsnik cannot help himself, so he adds a few extra bits and ultimately makes Ghazghkull bleed out. Makari's job back then was to loot bionics off of Krotsnik's failed experiments, so he can reuse them. As Makari prods at the body, something twitches, and he gets a vision straight from the gods. The vision is about an orc colony working hard at something, orcs growing bigger and bigger, orcs as they were meant to be, with the gods grinning down at them, and they were ready for a scrap. The fight grew and grew, It went on for ages until one showed up. This one orc would organize the others. The new giant would grow more and more and climb the mountain of bodies amassed by his fallen enemies. He would then reach the stars. As Makari's vision fades, he sees Gaz, the very same as the giant orc in his visions. Makari, while immediately feeling a connection to Ghazghkull, opts out to do the responsible thing. He tells the orc there's something behind him and starts running away before he gets dragged into something dangerous. Back in the interrogation room, we see Makari having a stigmata-like palm mark on himself that was definitely not there before, playing into the idea that the orc gods really had a hand in this. Makari obviously didn't manage to get away from Gaz. He grabbed him, then told Makari to start writing. Lacking anything to write with, the grot protests, but the orc just instructs him to stab him in the leg and use his blood to write. The orcs don't exactly have a written language, more a collection of various symbols that all have multiple meanings. So Makari starts doodling in the orc's blood. Gaz doesn't even flinch as he gets stabbed repeatedly. He just stares off into the distance. As the picts are done on the scrap sheet of metal, he takes the grot's getting stick, fashions the metal onto it, then hands it to Makari. That is the first banner Ghazghkull ever had.
And then I existed.
Makari says, reinforcing the idea that Makari is not just a name, it's an idea. Makari says that he had heard the name from Gaz first, unsure if he was just clearing his throat or actually calling him that. But deciding it's best, he just plays along. From now on, he kept the name. Not many grots have names. If an orc names something, they intend to keep it. From that point, he followed the orc everywhere, waving his banner high with every step. With his banner waver by his side, Gaz walks into Rustspike, which is a prosperous death skull camp. They hear a ruckus and head over to investigate, finding Dragmek, a warboss wearing this huge armor huddled together with alien bones and sheets of lead just to make it heavier. Dragmek was deep in telling his mob about a big fight he had just won, but Gaz decides to interrupt.
You're an offense to the gods,
He exclaims. Dragmek, confused, turns to Gaz, and his mob starts to laugh.
You what, Runt? You hurt.
Due to a faulty bionic eye, Dragmek can barely make out who his accuser is, but he figures out it's a Goth. They just had a huge victory over a Goth group, so they figure a victory lap can't hurt.
You fight other orcs squabbling over humans crap like a snoblin. You're no sort of an orc, and Gork and Mork know it.
Dragmek lowers his weapons at Ghazghkull and demands for his name before he kills him, just so that he can put his name down on his gun.
I am the prophet of Gork and Mork. They speak to my tusks, and my fists, and my head. I am Ghazghkull, and I will bring great slaughter!
After a brief moment of silence, Dragmek pulls the trigger. The scene is interrupted by Henriksen being annoyed at having to listen to a heroic tale that isn't one of his own. Don't misunderstand my focusing on the orc side of the plot as implying the interrogation is boring. I, for one, didn't care much for the Space Wolves or the Inquisition before this book, but I really enjoyed listening to their banter. However, I have to pick and choose what I focus on, and honestly, retelling everything in exact detail just feels wrong. If you like what you hear, go check out the book. Getting back into the story, we find out that either due to the gods or the faulty bionic eye, all shots missed Gaz. As Biter regales the fight, he does a sudden lunge to test Henriksen's reflexes. Folks feels threatened by the orc, but Henriksen is calm and sure in his ability to react if needed, having already assessed the danger of the lunge and deciding it's nothing to react to. Ghazghkull has a glorious victory over the over-encumbered warlord, pummeling him to the ground. The duel ended in a huge headbutt, which kind of becomes Ghazghkull's signature move. The Death Skulls join Ghazghkull, astonished by how he beat up their previous boss. As Gaz headbutts Dragmek, lightning strikes the Rustspike tower, making it sound thunderous. Oh yeah, and most importantly, the lightning, it was green, as my fontos lesz. After the squabble, Gaz finds the biggest Death Skull orc, called Bullets, whose full name is Finds Bullets He Has Not Lost. Gaz recruits him, but not before offering up a fight in revenge for killing his boss, as is orc etiquette. Bullets really wants to, but reckons there will be bigger fights coming under Ghazghkull's lead, so he joins. Having recruited the Death Skulls, Gaz walks away satisfied, taller, stronger. The Ghazghkull camp grows day by day, and newcomers alive. On the third day, Ghaz declares the big rule. Orcs can come from any clan and join them without getting killed, so long as they accept him as the boss. The orcs were still allowed to fight, so long as no one died. Orcs then from all sorts of clans came to join, and the camp turned into a non-stop riot. On the seventh day, Ghaz turns to Makari.
I've got a plan.
Ghazghkull recognizes the camp is getting too big. They will need bigger fights. We get to peer into Ghazghkull's thinking a bit here, where he says, Dragmek's death was messy, wasteful, not good enough. Now, most orcs would never admit anything they did was not perfect. Makari says it was almost like grot thinking. Ghaz decides to defeat all the clan bosses in what they do the best to show superiority in front of the mobs and the bosses, to prove himself to both. Messengers are sent, and after many are murdered, eventually, most bosses get the memo.
I'm off for a bit, but I'll bring back a planet.
First was Chestfrag, full name being Arrives at the Fight Before It's a Fight, a speed boss. Ghaz challenges him to a race with a rusty trike that wasn't even painted red. During the race, Makari tosses a bolt inside Chestfrag's shooter, which explodes, and he almost crashes. Of course, everyone thinks it was Ghazghkull who threw it, but Makari gets a small little W here. Chestfrag was so hyped up by this amazing race, he willingly joins Ghazghkull, but he does add that there are no hard feelings if he wishes to finish him off. I gotta say, that's fucking hilarious. Ghaz, of course, lets him live, and the entire caravan of the evil sons follows Ghaz to the Bad Moon stronghold Thraka, a rich tyrannical pirate king who calls himself the Mega Admiral. Woo! Henriksen interrupts again, saying that if there are 6 clans, and after the evil sons there's only 4 left, he was to just assume that Ghaz had 4 more amazing victories and skip the whole thing. Biter begrudgingly agrees, and Fox realizes she herself was starting to get into the story. Cassia asks to at least get the basics. The Mega Admiral was beaten in a sea battle. The battle was on a dry plain, but the Bad Moons considered it a sea battle, so that was what it was. As a reward for winning, Ghaz earns his iconic power claw. Then came Ghazghkull, the chieftain of the Snakebites. He still refused after being beheaded, so Ghaz held his head up until he regenerated. He got beheaded again, and then Ghazghkull finally agreed to join. Agrek was the Goth leader. As clan after clan joined, Agrek wanted to settle this the Goth way, in a headbutting competition. Ghaz grows bigger and bigger as he walks up to Agrek, who obviously lost, but he was allowed to keep his retinue, who in a display of loyalty battered their own heads in, and started calling themselves Agrek's Uglies. As for the Blood Axes, being the cut-in strategists, General Stratagem personally offers the Blood Axes to Ghaz. No competition needed. We get a little more Makari comparing Ghazghkull's way of thinking to grot thinking. Smekem und smiken nak, meaning hide now, stab him later. This basically means it's more to be prepared. But that's not how most X operate, except for like Blood Axes. Later on Urk, Thraka invents rockets, planning on having a nuclear war, but instead, he ends up inventing spaceships to attack the 2 moons of Urk with. After the 2 moons come the other worlds in the system, and when the other worlds retaliate, Thraka's rockets go back to being ballistic missiles again. Eventually, after conquering the system, the war boss runs out fights to present his boys with. This weighs on him heavily. The boys are itching for a proper fight. To add to his misery, Ghazghkull is constantly tormented by his headaches. He has outgrown the plate in his head, and he's been having constant seizures. Makari felt miserable seeing the great leader grovel in pain. It was unnatural, and he concluded Grotsnik must have been the one to sabotage him somehow.
I've seen him leave a spanner inside the Prophet's skull before, sealing it closed again, laughing to himself after. Which is fair because it was a classic, but it weren't right.
Eventually, Ghaz straightens up. Then he says, a beating of the mind, that's what I'll give to them. The whole scene definitely gives off the feeling that Ghazghkull's seizures are just him thinking really hard, which is anathema to orcs. I gotta add, I love how the plot itself keeps the idea of multiple objective truths. His headaches are both just him thinking really hard and the gods sending him ideas. And also Grotsnik sabotaging him. Which one is it? All of them? Neither? I think the fun lies in treating this as there being no definitely correct answers. Ghaz decided to have a speech that makes his mobs want to fight less.
So you want the biggest fight there is? Would you kill so many that the gods lose count? And drown cities in the blood of your footprints? Would you run in a mob so big it turns the world green? Would ya? Well, you won't get that here.
An expected outrage emerges from the hordes of the orcs listening to the boss. After a brief pause, he continues.
You won't get that here, 'cause it's up there.
He points up, clouds part, and stars shine through the sky.
You've been fighting clouds your whole rotten lives, throwing yourselves away in battles that change nothing. Battles that bore the gods, but up there are bigger battles than most of you would ever dream. There are Waaagh! Oh, there would be, if only you had the hunger to fight them. I know space, the gods have showed it to me, and it's massive. Your fleet couldn't get an eighth of us, an eighth of the way to a decent scrap. And what then? Will you get out and push? I will get you there. The gods have told me how. And when we get there, I promise you this, there will be more kill than you can even know. You'll feel nothing but Ragnarsar, the most pure battle bliss for the rest of your lives. And then, when you die, Gork and Mork will send you back, stronger for more. But there's a thing about fights. The bigger they are, the more they hurt. The more pain you give, the more you get. And what do orcs think of pain? Nothing! And all that's new about this pain of this fight, this war, is that some will come before it. It will be the pain of not fighting. The pain of waiting. Are you scared of that pain, orcs? Are you too weak to bear it?
After a moment of contemplation, one yells.
Oh, I can take it.
Then another.
I'll take it twice.
And then the next.
Easy.
And then everyone joined in. I cannot gush enough about this scene. There's no way I could do it justice here, but there's something really fun in how Ghaz is actually a good leader, convincing his overeager band of hulking giants to settle down, get to work on something productive, and focus so that in the future they may conquer system after system. Oh, and as the speech concludes, we get the really satisfying orc war cry. As the clans get to work. Absolute cinema. I mean, literature. For a brief moment, we jump back to the present. Henriksen is annoyed like always, awaiting a certain something's arrival that is being prepared for the interrogation. We'll get into it later. Folk seems more and more interested in the tale, and now bringing up more and more questions. We also find out that Urk's son died sometime around the story, and whatever the gods told Ghaz prepared him to get the fuck out of there before the sun explodes. The days on Earth go shorter and shorter. Instead of the occasional blizzards, now the planet is completely frozen over. The orcs are mad at work, getting thin, starving.
The gods made us to keep the orcs alive, even if that means from inside their bellies.
Macari adds, orcs have an instinct, a sense for when a leader isn't worth following, but that doesn't happen to Ghaz. Ghaz holds another speech to his mob, telling them that they need to endure one more week. He decides to become an example for the others, standing there, unmoving, enduring the misery of the lack of fighting. Important to mention that according to the prisoner, there was a tiny little ray of green light shining onto Gaz, signaling that the gods were indeed watching. Makari is made to stand still with the boss, holding his banner high. The next few days, things freeze over. Gaz looks borderline hypothermic. By the 5th day, production is over. Things are ready before the deadline, and the orcs await the gods to reward them. Makari by now is curled into a ball, but he would rather freeze to death there than leave. Unsure if Gaz is still alive, he asks.
You still there, boss?
After a short pause, Gaz responds in a low grumble.
Just forgot to breathe. Gods are coming.
Lights show up from the sky, colorful, a portal to the warp, which Makari understands is the gift from the gods they have been awaiting. He turns to an unmoving Gaz, angry even at the idea that he might have outlived the boss.
Boss?
He yells, then starts poking him, and finally, Gaz grumbles like a bear awakening from a deep slumber. Layers of ice crack and fall off of Ghazghkull's body. He finally looks up at the space hulk entering orbit.
I told you, gets.
Within moments, the camp explodes into life. Orcs pour onto the streets and rush to the launch pads. Rockets driven by chestfrag's best boys slam into the space hulk. Well, technically driven by their brains. Then the entire main fort of Earth shoots into space as naturally the orcs turned it into a gigantic rocket. Gaz and the bosses rush the hulk and find a ton of demons on it. Orcs and demons mesh really well, so the orcs are having the best time of their lives. They head to the middle of the hulk where they find a tear in reality, assuming that's why they can't drive the hulk. Gaz just casually walks down to the portal from which a greater demon of corn emerges, a bloodthirster. Gaz then beats the demon up so bad that sanguineous fans all over the world went to Reddit to whine about it. And then Ghazghkull headbutts the fuck out of the very portal the demon came from, demanding that it send something bigger. But no such luck.
To an orc, a headbutt is something spiritual.
Makari explains. To headbutt a problem is to solve it with both the gifts of Gork and with the gifts of Mork. It's the opposite of a speech, yet the same thing, because a speech is just another way to hit something with your brain. A beating of the mind, if you will. While Gaz is dealing with the portal, Grotsnik approaches Makari, taunting him, and then kicking him off of the deck into space. Makari floats off into space, dying. Green light shoots out from the portal, the thrusters turn on, and Makari dies with a smile watching the mob teleport away, off on the boss's first conquest. Also, Makari watches Earth's sun go supernova. Back in the interrogation room, the retinue seems confused by Makari's dying in the story. Surprisingly, Hendrickson seems quite fine with it, though Fawkes knows him well, and she sees something brewing inside of the old room priest. Fawkes feels the interrogators are being played with, so she decides to let Hendrickson ease some of his frustrations to remind the greenskins who's in charge. Hendrickson picks Makari up by the throat, still chained to his chair, and Hendrickson holds his bolt pistol in his other hand while he clenches around the Grotsnek. What would happen if I were to kill you now? Hendrickson asks. To which Biter just replies, they would die. In a very matter-of-fact manner. Hendrickson is quite dissatisfied with this answer, but Biter's smugness doesn't fade. We do find out the orcs believe in reincarnation, or as Biter calls it, reincantation. The greenskin explains that the Grot, who used to be Makari, died, but Makari lives on, hence why he can be here if he dies. All very simple, see? The debate is interrupted by Zottl's arrival. We don't exactly know yet what Zotl is, but it's basically a fish-like crude xenos. If you don't know what crude are, it would be too long to get into it, but basically they evolve into whatever they eat, and most importantly, they also gain their meal's memories. Biter is given a knife to cut off a piece of flesh from Makari for Zotl, and Biter happily obliges. Zotl devours the slab of meat, commenting on its flavor, but Fawkes and her entourage just want answers as to whether the Grot really is telling the truth. Within moments, the water tank once holding the cupbearer gets filled with green fungi sprouting from the now dead Zotl. Makari's stream of conscience story continues. He has no idea where he was, just that he was running. He finds a crying human in the chaos. Lacking a word for the little creature, he calls it one of their larvae. Some orcs bellow orders to others.
Nah, find the lucky one.
referring to Makari, who is not sure to be happy or terrified that they want him alive. Bullets ends up being the one to find him. Makari knows that Ghaz seemed concerned, almost sad in a way, after his reincarnation. He didn't yet know everything from his past, but he had a feeling that Ghaz was supposed to be happy. The war boss rambles about something not feeling right. They are fighting, they are winning, yet something is wrong. Ghaz yells to the gods,
Why won't you talk to me?
expecting answers for his problem, but nothing comes.
Stupid gods.
The warlord finally concedes and realizes Makari has been watching him talking to himself.
You hear any of that?
The god denies awaiting certain death, but Ghaz just picks him up by the shoulder, giving him the name Makari again. The way things are worded, there's an implication of a small triumph or a second wind of some sort, almost as if Makari is needed for Ghaz to fully operate, as if Makari is the last piece of the puzzle that is Ghazghkull. Back to the interrogation room again, Cassia inquires if Ghaz ever told them why Makari was so important to him. But we just get some rambling about how orcs get drawn to things, even bringing up Armageddon as an example, how it feels like a holy place, like there's something unsettled there. War of the Beast fans, I'm sorry, but I'm with Edric on this one. I'm not touching that series. But yeah, the whole exploration is just the classic, the way things are. There's a mention of the orc gods too, which you can guess how well head racist Henriksen handles. I don't want to downplay these conversations in the interrogation chamber. They are great, but there are limits to how much I can just directly quote word for word. It's important to note, though, that I'm in no way suggesting that this is the boring part of the story, and the orc backstory is the only good side of the book. Both are great, but one is a little more important for our purposes in this video. We learn from Makari that once he regained his position as banner waver of Ghazghkull, he saw things had changed. Ghaz was so preoccupied leading, he barely had any time to fight, and this weighed on him heavily. Grotsnik was living well off too, his research thriving, getting to experiment on not just orcs, but kidnapped and enslaved humans too. The Mad Dog was happy to always have Ghazghkull around, treating the warlord as his pet project. Unfortunately for the dog, Makari's return prompts Ghaz to tell Grotsnik a simple sentence that he cannot argue with.
Going to war.
Grotsnik protests, tempting him with implants to reduce the headache. Makari has had enough though. He grows a massive pair of titanium balls and he scolds Grotsnik.
Boss says he wants to fight, Git. Or do you need to work on your own ears?
Grotsnik gives the orc a look that could kill, but Ghaz just flicks Makari on the forehead, sending him flying a few meters. While this is punishment, it's important to note that this being less than lethal is not the norm. Ghaz scolds Makari for speaking up, saying it's ungodly.
He's an orc. You're a grot.
But right after this, Ghaz agrees and calls the surgery off. Makari smirks at Grotsnik as they leave to join the glorious Waaagh Ghaz built up. Makari was amazed, but the boss was unsatisfied. There's a strangely serene scene here. Ghaz and Makari just stand there, taking it all in. Makari says the boss was silent, leaving space for the gods to fill Makari in on what he had missed out on. And Makari just shrugs it off.
It's not like I've been in the brew huts with the gods. Just being dead.
I'm going to take a moment to dive a little deeper into something that I absolutely adore in most Warhammer books. That being subtext. I struggle to properly convey how strangely emotional these bits are. Now obviously Makari is an unreliable narrator, and there's no canon in 40k, so I'm just going to treat this as my interpretation here is fact. Ghaz is deeply depressed. He's a hedonistic creature that lives to fight, but mentally he has standards, goals, dreams, and ideas. Neither the boss's mind or culture are ready to even comprehend these ideas, let alone know how to deal with them. He's constantly tormented by this uncanny feeling that something is off. The headaches are very real, caused by Grotsnik, but they might as well not be because they are symbolism for the mental anguish this orc feels. The anguish of a man who has experienced the letdown of achieving a great thing and feeling like it isn't enough. Surrounded by manipulators and idiots who reap the reward of the Waaagh Ghaz created, but feeling isolated from them. The only constantly reliable thing in his life is Makari, giving good advice, powering through anything, bearing any danger even though grots do know fear. Yet the grot is no more than an object, something to serve the orcs. In this moment, as they stare off into the distance, is beautifully conveyed. Makari is not a pet, not just a banner waver, maybe not even a friend, but definitely someone Gaz needs by his side, to calm him, steer him clear, to watch his back, and there is no Ghazghkull without Makari. Also here, Makari calls the Emperor a git on a chair, which is diabolical. Makari realizes that leading from a distance and strategizing will only deteriorate Ghazghkull's mental state further. So he asks,
Have you considered a full charge with everything we got?
Gaz agrees, not directly though. Instead, he makes it sound like it's his idea, which he might fully believe it is. According to Makari, Gaz letting him give him advice was one thing, but him accepting this advice of a grot would have been an unimaginable sign of weakness. So he finds peace in thinking that Gaz did in fact listen to him. He just had to justify it in a strange roundabout way so that it's not like the grot was bossing him around. We skip a bit in what happens after this, but it's a fight on Armageddon at the Mannheim Gap, where humanity lost too much for this to be just another meaningless fight story.
It was the best time we ever had together.
Makari explains, showing them a necklace Gaz made out of shrapnel for him. Makari tells these stories with glee. Grotsnik wasn't around for any of this, just him and the boss. That scene was so adorably gay, I had to go change my shirt and work for a week, but I'm back. The conversation in the interrogation room wanders towards Yerik, or Old Baelai, as the Greenskins know him. Yerik was an amazing strategist holding most of Armageddon against Gaz, even when severely outnumbered. Gaz will in time have a great appreciation for Yerik. When he first hears what Yerik did, which according to the orcs was pointing all the cannons straight up and firing so he doesn't need to aim at all, Gaz was in denial, because only the boss could be so cunning to think of such a thing. That shit never gets old. Yerik becomes his grud. A grud's importance in an orc's life is akin to something like a significant other in a human's. It's a favorite enemy, a rival, but for most orcs of his stature, to have a human grud would be mento, as the Greenskins say. We then get another one of my favorite epic emotional scenes that gives us a window into Ghazghkull's ever-deteriorating mental state. Makari sneaks into the throne room, hears Ghazghkull talking to himself.
I ain't sure the gods believe in me anymore.
Makari adds that he just reeked of fungus brew, which is just...
We're only gonna keep winning if the boys believe we are.
Makari does not answer him, opting to remain hidden.
The boys will only believe that if the bosses believe it. And the bosses will only believe that if I believe it. But I ain't sure I believe it. Because I ain't sure the gods believe in me.
See, man's got a lot on his mind, poor guy. Makari is certain that the boss knows where he is, but he remains silent. After all, the most powerful orc in the galaxy cannot admit weakness to a grot. But if Makari remains silent, well, then he was just eavesdropping and Gaz was just talking to himself.
Dave, stop talking to me. I still get the headaches, but there's no green in them. There's darkness, and I don't know if it's because I should know how to win without them telling me, or if it's because they found some other orc who's more worth talking to somewhere else. Either way, I've let them down.
Gaz explained that he does not feel like the other bosses. He is better than them in every way, but he is not akin to them. He lost his battle bliss and he needs more. He needs something else, but he doesn't know what it is. The next morning, Gaz kicks Makari out of his hammock in the morning, like nothing happened, celebrating with the other bosses throughout the day, but Makari saw through this facade. Gaz was faking it. Things slowly dialed down, ammo started running out faster, cannon ranges shortened, there were more spontaneous explosions, the Waaagh got weaker by the day. But it was all very slowly. It was slow enough for most not to notice, but Gaz did, and it weighed on him heavily. Astartes' support arrives, and the warlord loses almost all his forces. Gaz ultimately sends most of his boys on a last blaze of glory, which they happily oblige, and he gathers the most important clan bosses, And then he does the unimaginable. Gaz somehow is still not hated by his underlings. Many would be after such a loss, but Gaz gives another speech explaining the concepts like knowing your enemy and manages to calm them down. Also, Ghazghkull was saved, and he is happy to continue working on his pet project. The war boss had lost. The boys didn't yet realize, but he knew, and he was devastated.
There it is. The real proper truth about Ghazghkull Thraka. Can I go now?
How do they do this? Orcs are such a stupid, goofy concept, but I love them. That little "can I go now?" it sells the loss so well. Side tangent number many. I deeply appreciate how rich the orc culture is in 40k. The mindset, the slang, the superstitions, it all lets the reader get deeply immersed in the story. Simply saying the orcs love to fight and Gaz is sad because he had to retreat will never even begin to explain what actually happens here. This is why I wanted to do this, to either get you into the books, or if not, at least give you a better understanding of how the orcs work. Memes about colors and their make-believe psychic abilities are fun, but that little "can I go now?" that shit hits different. Yeah, by the way, I'm unironically saying that this shit is deep. If you aren't gonna take the subject seriously, don't take the fucking course. Henriksen says LeMayo no, and he mocks the idea of the biggest orc in the galaxy being depressed. Biter explains to Makari what depression is, and Makari only now learns the word for this. He seems quite happy to finally put this concept into a word. They question the Groth's reasons for divulging all this information about the great boss's weakness, and Biter, without even consulting him, starts to explain that after Makari has disappeared, they question the Groth's reasons for divulging all this information about the great boss's weakness so easily. And Biter, without even consulting him, starts to explain that afterwards, Makari disappeared again. And there was a reason for this. They were headed for Golgotha. Gaz still played his part, but now it was clear to Makari how different to the other orcs he became. As orcs grow, they don't just become stronger, they also become smarter. But smarts came with thinking, and most orcs hate thinking. Ghazghkull was hard at work on him too, which didn't help the situation. The headaches grew stronger by the day, seizures like never before. One day, bullets suggest going back to Armageddon. Ghazghkull likes the idea so much that he keeps reaffirming it during surgeries to the point where Gaz thinks it was his own idea. Makari, of course, hates all of this. Going back, the doctor, the depressed leader situation, all of it. Trying his best to save what's savable, he decides to grow a pair again and tell the boss going back to Armageddon is a mistake. The Groth fears that Ghazghkull won't appreciate him meddling in his plans, which is fair because he already tried to kill him once, but Makari ultimately triumphs over his fear. He finds the boss alone, gazing at the stars.
Smecken und smicken nak,
Makari says.
What?
Comes the response from the confused Ghazghkull. Makari explains the Groth phrase to the war boss like once before on Urk. Gaz is still unsure why Makari brings this up, but the explanation comes fast.
About Armageddon, you might win it. You will win it. And when you do, you will have the planet. But if you don't go back there, you could have millions of planets.
Makari has already crossed the line, but he keeps talking even though he knows he might die for this.
When I made the banner, every star in the sky was green, not just Hades' hive. Boss, you managed to get the 6 most stubborn gits on Earth working together with just your brain and your fists.
Makari keeps going on about how the others believe in him, even Makari does, and he is a Groth.
The only person who don't believe in Ghazghkull is Ghazghkull.
Things go silent for a moment, but Makari's fear fades. The boss seems to be thinking.
Yeah, you're right.
Makari stopped for a moment in disbelief that the boss went along with it, but unfortunately for him,
I've stopped believing in myself. Or you started believing in yourself a bit too much, Makari.
Gaz towers over the Groth. Basically, Gaz explains to the Groth if he thinks he can tell him what to do, something has truly gone wrong. Then he calls Makari a mistake.
You tell Ghazghkull, I will be strong without him.
And he crushes Makari's head between his 2 fingers. Makari's second life ends. Gaz does admit that he used to consider Makari a strength, But his insecurity of being an Orky grows so strong that he decides to cut ties with the Grot altogether, lying to himself just like he lies to the other bosses. And with Makari not around, he is defenseless against Grotsnik's schemes and manipulations. According to the Greenskins, Makari was not around for Golgotha, and the interrogators will have to ask Yarick if they want more information. Folks has her own opinion about Yarick. Undeniably a hero, but self-righteous and boring, so she decides against meeting him anytime in the near future. Biter asks about Yarick, inquiring as he was some kind of celebrity, his main curiosity being if Yarick ever talks about Ghazghkull. I mean, that's cute, he just wants his hero to be mentioned by his other hero. Henriksen shoots down the conversation, urging them to get back on the topic. He would most likely never admit it, but even Henriksen was beginning to get invested in the story, especially Makari's reincarnations. After all, a good reincarnation saga is quite common in Fenrisian culture. Eventually, Gaz decides to bring Makari back. Not because he reconsidered, but because the other orcs kept pressuring him about it. So he just grabs a random Grot and names him Makari again. Our current Makari in the cell rants a bit about the banner being hideous when he found it, clearly taking a lot of pride in taking care of it for so long. Patching it up after battles, repainting it basically daily, and adding to it here and there. We find out it was Bullets who's been asking about Makari, and he's been always kind to him for some reason. Bullets probably feels the boss changing. He might not know exactly what's wrong here, but he is happy to see Makari back. The Grot soon realizes that they are back on Armageddon again, and he is disappointed that the boss only brought him back to shut Bullets up. Makari decides that if he is this meaningless, he might as well go and die again. So he runs into a crossfire, getting shot to bits. Folks asks if Makari thinks Gaz ever realized it was him there, not just a random Grot. Makari is unsure, but he assumes Bullets did. This went on for quite a while. The banner waver lost count of how many times he died, always ending up being brought back by the boss's will. Biter explains to us that this is just like a Grot trying to run away, so the orc has to prove its worth for being followed. As the story continues, the interrogators realize that the timeline is getting near to the last time humans ever heard anything from Ghazghkull.
I ain't gonna say sorry.
Starts the next chapter. Gaz had eventually reconsidered his outburst, but he still adds some insults to his sentence.
Go dress your hide, Makari. You've given me some headaches, you have. But headaches is where I do my best thinking. And so, Makari, I've been thinking, fellow.
Gaz seems much more like his old self for one reason or another.
I ain't saying I'm sorry. I ain't said I was wrong either. I wasn't wrong to kill you. And I wasn't wrong coming back to this world. Do you smell it, Makari? Do you see it, Makari? What I made here.
Turns out that Gaz locked the fuck in. There were thousands of orc vehicles, gargants, guns. It was a Waaagh so mega that even the gods couldn't ignore it. He built spaceships again, and he stood there watching this war up in the void.
This is holy, Makari.
Makari waves his banner high, drinking in the sight of Armageddon in chaos in front of them. The orcs weren't losing anymore. They might not have been winning either, but one thing's for sure. They were having a blast. Gaz surprises him with what he says next. He explains that they aren't staying. The boys will finish the fight, but Gaz and the Grot are done here. He has united the orcs, so he is done here, proving himself right. He fought and fought until the boys were united. Ghazghkull points a talent to Makari and says he will not be doubted again. He does admit he had his moments, but he found the best way, the way of the orcs. And that was always the plan, because that's the truth, because I said so. This is about as close to an apology as orcs get, so yay! Our lads are back together and all is well. Gaz gives an explanation as to what ultimately changed his mind. On one of Makari's suicide runs, the Grot beat himself to death with a wrench that made Gaz really fucking mad. He threw a hissy fit, and the bosses saw him, and then he had to fight one of them to save face. He won, of course, and there were no hard feelings, but him losing his cool made him think about the headaches. After all, orcs operate best when they are angry. He says the headaches were the gods speaking, them kicking him in the head. Urk was glorious, but it was maxed out, nowhere to grow. Armageddon is great, but still, no way to improve. Gaz attributes the headaches to the gods punishing him for sitting idle, and so he's already starting his next conquest. He makes sure the grot knows that he isn't sorry, but the surely coming apology is interrupted by a random Imperium tank showing up out of nowhere and shooting Gaz. Because fuck you, that's why. Gaz picks out the missile from his wound.
Warhead didn't even go off.
And then the warhead exploded, spraying blood and shrapnel everywhere. Gaz is not dead, but he is wounded enough for McCory to be forced to act. Enraged by his wounded big boyfriend taking the orc equivalent of a bullet, McCory climbs into the damaged tank and tears the humans apart fairly swiftly.
No, right, you were right. The gods wanted me to unite the orcs. There. Now let's go and turn the stars green.
Okay, so my script here says talk about the tank bit, but I have no idea what I wanted to talk about here, but I'm sure you can figure it out for yourself. After all, apparently I found it so obvious, I found taking notes completely unnecessary. So, yeah. McCory tries to act like this is where the story ends, but the interrogators keep pressing him about it. He starts stalling for time, recounting battle after battle for 6 hours straight. By now, the interrogation has been going on for 22 hours. Cassia asks for a 6-hour break. Fawkes agrees and heads back to her small personal cubby. The Lord Inquisitor is restless, and so is Henriksen. The Space Wolf visits her to talk a little. They discuss their suspicions on why McCory is being so cooperative. If they have united with the boss, and Henriksen suggests that this is all part of some greater deception. After a brief discussion, red lights flare up, signaling a containment breach on the ship. Henriksen is already on his feet, knife drawn, ready to act if necessary. As Fawkes quickly grabs her pistol, another warning starts blaring. Cabin breach. They rush to Cassia's room, finding only her mangled corpse. Biter had escaped. The scene was horrid. The Ogrin was killed by a knife with particular brutality, and Henriksen immediately deduces who did it. After all, chopping up an Ogrin is no easy feat. Henriksen acknowledges the dead psyker's struggles with a
Well fought.
and then they start working out where the orc could have gone. By the time the Space Wolf gets the orc sent to hunt it down, they hear the sound of a pod being jettisoned, and with that, Biter is gone. Fawkes has a mini breakdown. Henriksen seems small, but he does instruct her not to assume his collected demeanor for apathy towards Cassia. McCory, still chained to his chair, had this shit-eating grin on his face, but he was surprised to see Henriksen opt out of killing him immediately. The room priest laid down a pelt and started some ancient shamanic ritual. He spread herbs, skulls, runes, wax, and laid a kraken's tooth in the middle. Through Henriksen's ritual, we peer into the grot's memory.
Ghazghkull left Armageddon.
He goes on to explain that Gaz built up his forces again, preparing for an even larger war. He was hunted down by Ragnar, the previous Space Wolf chapter master. Witnessing what happened, Henriksen grabs the prisoner's skull, chanting something in ancient Fenrisian as he gets lost in his mind. The only thing I have to say about the upcoming chapter is I really like how they decided to change the narration in the part where Henriksen sees rather than Beitel telling them. This chapter is a description of McCory's point of view in the fight against Ragnar. Again, I'm not getting into the Space Wolves battle. It's fun. Henriksen deserves some relevance in the story, but we're all here for the orcs right now. Fawkes comes to herself, immediately throwing up after the vision. I guess I forgot to mention, but she also gets to see everything throughout the ritual. The memory of being McCory literally sickens her. She's nauseous, vomiting, and she's heavily shaken. Henriksen assures her that she got off lightly. The room priest looked almost spent, withered. His eyes were bloodied, his fangs dug into his lips, but he was relatively okay. Fawkes assures him that this is fine. They needed the information. There was no other way we could have reached the end of the creature's tale, and suddenly she is interrupted by the perfect spoken nasally Gothic sentence.
You could have just asked.
Turns out that the translator was completely unnecessary. McCory spoke their language, and he was grinning at the two of them. McCory assures them Gaz was killed by Ragnar. They saw him get decapitated. But we know Gaz's head was sewn onto another body, and he is alive and well. Amidst the constant alert messages of the crew fixing up the containment breach, there's a new message that catches Fawkes' eye from the navigator. Apparently, they found a shortcut to home. Hendrickson psychically admits to Fawkes that this was fruitful, but he asks her to finish the interrogation. But Fawkes wants to hear the rest of the story. She ignores the room priest's pleas, and she asks Macarie to continue. Macarie, meanwhile, is fidgeting with a piece of shrapnel that was given to him by Gaz. He offers to show her much more, but even his tone suggests that it's an obvious trap. Hendrickson insists that they play it safe. Within the hour they could secure the prisoner, but Fawkes is too curious. Gaz in that talks to the gods. His ambition now fully on display, talking down to the gods, not even demanding things now, just declaring things that he will achieve. There's a long monologue of Gaz here. If you got this far into the video, you seem interested enough in the topic, I urge you to go, give the book a try. Nothing changes much in him, he's just his best, confident self again, having regained his battle bliss, so it's not really plot relevant, but it's a great peer into Ghazghkull's mind. What is important for us now is that in death, Gaz sees something small and green. It's Macarie, and now fully alone, he finally admits that Macarie was always right. He always knows what to do, what to say, and his anger fades.
Macarie always comes back, and it's me who brings him back by the granting of his name. Not if I'm not there. Who will find Macarie?
This might mean that he was always doing this consciously, or maybe as he usually does, he retrofitted his own memories and just gaslit himself into thinking he was always intentional in bringing him back. Fawkes' state seems to be getting worse, but she's handling it alright. Macarie's chair starts to look more and more like a throne by the minute as the smug greenskin sits on it. Fawkes pushes further into his mind in honor of Cassia. For the mission she set herself on, she will discover the truth, or die trying. Bullets and a squad of orcs were looking for Macarie, letting us know that orc Waaagh energy is enough in itself to manifest Macarie. They pick up and question every Gretchen they get their hands on, if the poor victim happens to be Macarie. If not, they get smashed.
Yeah, boss.
And the orcs are as shocked as the Grot. The orcs in disbelief for having found him, the Grot still figuring out who he is exactly. They send the new Macarie to go fetch Ghazghkull's hand, and Grotsnik leers over them. Of course, Grotsnik decided to try and get the hand of Ghazghkull the moment he found out that he was dead. Bullets explains to Macarie that the boss is injured, but Grotsnik assures him that the boss is dead. The pain boy here is very obviously up to no good. Even Bullets has his own doubts about him, but he gives him until sunrise and tells Macarie to shout if the Mad Dog tries anything funny. Grotsnik's lab was unlike any other. He obviously grew immensely influential during Ghazghkull's reign. The Mad Dog got Gaz Frankensteined up on a scaffolding with tubes, cables coming out of him. By the way, this is where Gaz gets his current claw and gun and armor and everything. The sole reason Grotsnik wants Macarie is because Gaz literally needs the Grot. And wanting his experiment to go well, he wanted to make sure everything was perfect. Macarie accuses the Mad Dog of betraying Gaz, but Grotsnik insists he only made Gaz what he is now. The headaches weren't the gods, it was his meddling. The Pain Boy insists that he created the war boss, and he kinda has a point. The reason Macarie is important is that he eases Gaz's pain, helps him endure. That's why he needs to stay next to Gaz. The Mad Dog, for being obviously insane, is one of the smartest orcs I've ever read about, and he brings up quite a bunch of good points. Now, I don't think it was fully him that made Gaz. Neither do I think it was the gods or Ghazghkull's own Waaagh energy. In the spirit of the book, I believe it's best to adopt the orky mindset of multiple things being objectively right, and say that, yes, it was 100% Grotsnik, yet it wasn't. It was the gods, who don't exist, only in Ghazghkull's brain, so it was Gaz's psychic energy. Get me? No? Whatever. I think the book might be infecting me, but think about it. Accepting all these as true, we avoid arguments over what really made Gaz Gaz. My point is, it doesn't matter. What Gaz thinks made Gaz is what made Gaz, because that's the orkiest explanation. Grotsnik turns on his mad machinery that's apparently so huge most of it is kept in a pocket dimension in the warp, because he's just built different. Things fire up, they spark, they clank, they almost explode, but then everything goes green. By the way, fun fact to the Edric fans out there who saw the video on Grotsnik, this is where he puts the eels in Ghazghkull's head. The next is an almost poetic Ghazghkull monologue as he comes to. Just go pick up the book. With a great war cry, the boss is back and he laughs maniacally. Back on the ship, the light in the cell flickers. Fawkes has visions of fungi growing on the walls, and what's even more concerning is that she can still hear Ghazghkull's laughter. Macarie whispers to Fawkes, letting her know that if she wants to get to know Ghazghkull, this is her chance because he is coming. Macarie does not fear that anymore. He is eager in anticipation as Ghazghkull approaches, the hideous laughter getting louder and louder. Henriksen doesn't even reach for his bolter anymore. His fangs are bare, animalistic rage brewing inside him. The two realized that Ghazghkull outsmarted them. He only wanted to spread his legend, and Biter had plundered any information it wanted before leaving. Fawkes realizes that Gaz defied his instinct. That's why he is so dangerous. They, on the other hand, had played into their own. That's how they got trapped. Henriksen reminisces of his days before becoming an Astartes, just a gleeful child. But it's too late to act against their character. It's too late to defy instinct. He picks up Macarie and drags him down the corridor looking for the Xenos war boss. From the warp, an armada arrive. All orc vessels, one last trap laid by Biter. The latter suddenly stops. Macarie wails, screaming a no, no. Henriksen tosses the grot back into a cell. They decide to keep Macarie alive as a kind of hostage and plan for an escape while the orcs raid the worlds in the system. Macarie's screeches in the cell start to deepen. Moment by moment, the high-pitched screaming turns into a deep bellow. And, well, here's how the book ends. The lights along the corridor sparked and burst one by one, plunging the corridor into darkness. And the darkness was green.